welcome all of you here. And as Sami indicated, at our press conference of May 14th, 2020, you will recall that we exposed the grand criminal collusion between the Electoral Commission, the National Identification Authority, and the ruling New Patriotic Party to rig the 2020 elections for President Akufo-Addo. Since then, we have noted some supposed pathetic and irrational responses from the Jane Mensah-led EC and the Atifa-led NIA to the issues we raised at that press conference. Rather than address the legitimate concerns we raised, the two state institutions have resorted to blatant falsehoods to obfuscate the simple issues and thereby mislead the nation. The purpose of today's press conference is therefore to respond to the several deliberate distortions which have been peddled by the EC and the NIA in their respective statements, and help Ghanaians appreciate the seriousness of the concerns we have raised and the danger that they portend for the country. Before proceeding any further, and for the purpose of emphasis, let me restate the case of the NDC relative to the new CI, which has been laid by the EC before the August House of Parliament. For the avoidance of doubt, the NDC's opposition to the EC's entrenched and intransigent decision to compile a new voters' register for the 2020 general elections remain unchanged. Let me take it again. For the avoidance of doubt, the NDC's opposition to the EC's entrenched and intransigent decision to compile a new voters' register for the 2020 general elections remains unchanged. We stand by our position that the current voters' register is credible and that the country does not need a new voters' register for this year's general elections. We are therefore employing all legitimate means to stop the needless, illogical, and wasteful new voters' register agenda of the Jane Mensah-led EC. The crux of the issues we raised at our last press conference is that the registration requirements provided under the proposed constitutional instrument, which has been laid in Parliament by the EC, that is Ghanaian passports, which has less than 2 million holders who are 18 years and above, or the Ghana card, with just about 6.5 million holders who are 18 years and above, to govern the needless, illogical, and wasteful new registration exercise they intend to undertake, are too narrow and wholly inadequate for the purposes of identifying eligible voters, which is estimated about 18 million. And that same, and this realization that, first of all, less than 2 million people have passports. Most of them have used the passports as bidder documents for NIA cards. And out of the estimated population of 18 million, only 6.5 million of those 18 and above have been issued with cards. And this we see as part of the grand conspiracy between the EC, NIA, and the ruling MPP to disenfranchise over 10 million eligible voters, mostly in NDC strongholds. For purposes of clarity, the key issues are as follows. 1, the issue of lack of consultations with political parties on the proposed CI before it was laid in Parliament is something that cannot be overlooked. The claim, and very recent claim, by the MPP that the proposed CI was discussed at the 25th March IPAC meeting is a concocted barefaced lie, as the matter was neither on the agenda, and I think we have a copy of the agenda, The matter was neither on the agenda of the said IPAC meeting nor captured in the records of the said meeting as has been discussed. In any case, and this is what makes it most ridiculous and preposterous, the proposed CI was laid in Parliament on the 17th of March 2020, 8 clear days before the 25th of March 2020 IPAC meeting in question. So how then do you say that a CI that has already been laid in Parliament was discussed at the subsequent IPAC meeting? Complete falsehood, and a very unintelligent one at that. So it is therefore preposterous and an insult to the intelligence of Ghanaians for the General Secretary of the MPP to suggest that the proposed CI was discussed at IPAC 8 days after it had been laid in Parliament. This is simply an unintelligent lie. Second is the unreasonable and unconstitutional exclusion of the existing voter ID card from the list of registration requirements provided under the proposed CI, contrary to the EC's own position that it will be used for this year's voter registration exercise, as captured on slide 27 of their presentation at the 30th January 2020 joint meeting of IPAC, the EC's eminent advisory committee, and CSOs. So we showed it the last time, just for emphasis. They stated that this is their main document. This is like their Bible or Quran. And this is the document they use to canvass their position consistently and continuously. Any group they met, diplomatic corps, civil society, trade union, they were consistent. This, and we also have videos when officials of the EC stated clearly and unambiguously that they were going to use the existing voter ID card. So the question is, what happened at midnight? Is the EC discarding all previous data? And the answer, no. And it's significant that the no had 3 exclamation marks. It means no, no, no. And I said in Hausa, they say, well, lie, never. Or in the emphasis shows that it's something that they have talked about, they have discussed and taken a decision. They will use the existing data of voters during the registration of voters. This point has to be made that the existing voting ID card, voter's ID card, is the most widely available identification document in Ghana with over 16 million holders and has been upheld by the Supreme Court of Ghana as the best prima facie evidence of voter eligibility in the Abu Ramadan case. And I think we have the summary of that to the Abu Ramadan case. Okay. It is the identification document with the strictest, most rigorous, and transparent acquisition procedure and has been used in the compilation of all voter registers since the inception of the Fourth Republic, 1996, 2004, and 2012. And so this is former Chief Justice. If the holder were not qualified for registration as a voter, how did he or she come by the voter registration card under the law then in force? And it's important that we take you through how people get their voter ID cards. First of all, you have to go to a polling station, and you must be an ordinary resident of that polling station. So when you go, political parties have their agents there. Civil society have their agents there. Electoral officers are there, and you could be challenged. Beyond that, after you are registered, it goes through a process of exhibition. At the point of exhibition, somebody can challenge and your name can be excluded. If you are challenged, it goes through an adjudicating process. And that process could culminate in you facing a magistrate court. If you lose and you want to appeal, it could go as far as the High Court. So that is the standard. That and the procedures and processes that this card goes through. And today you are telling us what? We should throw that card away? So, as I said, it is an identification document with the strictest, most rigorous, and transparent acquisition procedure and has been used in the compilation of all voters register. Again, they are talking about people use NIA card. Indeed, the Supreme Court ruled that those cards should be removed, and the EC complied and removed those names. So if the EC knows anybody who used NIA card, they should bring the list and remove the names. You cannot, on suspicion, you don't have any facts, you don't have any list, and say that you want to prevent people, you don't know who they are, and you create a process where millions of Ghanaians will now not be eligible to register. The third point is the inclusion of the Ghana card, whose issuance is incomplete and has been fraught with several anomalies in the list of registration requirements under the proposed CI. You don't recall when they started the Ghana card, we arrested people, you remember? Took them to police station, several cases, they were registering people in MPP executives' home. These are facts that you, the media, covered and reported on. What is happening to them? That is the kind of NIA card that we have. And you say that that is more credible than the voters' card? And this is contrary to the EC's earlier position that same will not be used for the purposes of this year's voter registration exercise. The fourth is the over-reliance on the secondary identification method of vouching as a norm rather than an exception in breach of international best practice relative to identity management. They've been throwing dust in our eyes. If you don't have a passport, and mind you, less than 2 million people have passports anyway. You don't have a passport, and you don't have an NIA card, then they've created a situation where previously only 5 people can guarantee for you. Now you can guarantee for 10 people. Thank you. I'm suffering, pa. Thank you very much. So, so now you can guarantee for 10 people, and all those things, they're just playing. They think that people do not know. First of all, when it comes to identity management, it's not exclusive to Ghana. There are international standards and protocols. So the guarantee for somebody is meant to be the exception rather than the norm. By international protocol, only 5% of people should be guaranteed based on the secondary procedure, that is people guaranteeing for you. The breeder document, which is the main document you choose, should be a document that majority of the people would have access to. And in this case, it should be the voter's ID card, which has over 16 million people. But you have a situation where by virtue of the NIA's action, which I'll prove further, you will have over 16 million people, millions of people not being able to have access to the card, and yet that card is your main breeder document. That is not fair. So this idea of somebody can guarantee for you, in any case, from a very practical point of view, if you have to guarantee for 10 people in a very practical way, when the NIA were doing the registration, we all saw what happened. You go, you guarantee for the person, they say wait for the person to go through, because if any information you put out there is not correct and you've left, how would they know? So imagine somebody has gone there, spent a whole day or 2 days, 3 days, and then now he has to wait. All the people he guaranteed for, they must wait. It's going to be chaotic. That also delays the registration process. Already we are behind schedule, and I'll come to that. So the whole thing just does not make sense. So that issue of guarantee is meant to be supplementary. So if 90%, 95% of the people have access to the main document, then the few 5% who don't have any document, they will then resort to somebody guaranteeing for them. Now, let me deal with the NIA specifically. Apart from the deliberate distortions contained therein, the NIA's response has confirmed the NDC's position that since 2017, they have registered only 11 million Ghanaians and issued just about 7 million cards. And out of the 7 million, only about 6.5 million people are above 18 years and above. So, in effect, only about 6.5 million people have access to the NIA card. I've already told you that less than 2 million people, let's say 1.5, because foreigners, children, will also have access to passports. And mind you, you can't even count all the people who have passports, because some of them use the passports as a breeder document to get the NIA card. So you are talking about some 1 million thereabouts. So what is going to happen to the rest of us who yet do not have our cards? And the NIA themselves, in their response, confirmed the figures we put out. The NIA could not dispute our claim that only 5.17%, and 6.36% of the registrable population in the Upper West and Upper East regions, respectively, have been issued Ghana cards as we speak. So Upper West, Upper East, Northern region, Savannah, Northeast, you look at the figures, from 86%, 85%, 84%, and Upper East and Upper West 5.17%, Upper East 6.36%. So the rest of the people, the 90-something percent, what is going to happen to them? Are they not Ghanaians? Do they not deserve to be treated rightly and fairly and justly as anybody else? Do they have to go through the hassle of trying to find people to guarantee for them with all its attendant delays and frustrations? And we're in the rainy season and the farming season. When we talk about registration, we are not talking in the context of something that we don't know. It's been happening. And we all know what happens when it's time for registration, especially when it borders on electoral matters. So they couldn't dispute our claim. And they are relying on same for the voter registration exercise they intend to undertake next month, they say. That's easy. And which will compel over 93% of eligible voters in these two regions, which are strongholds of the NDC. So take note of that, because when we say, they say, where is the conspiracy? So by some strange, accidental, the strongholds of the NDC, you have a situation where 93% of eligible voters in these two regions will not have access to their cards, and they have to resort to the secondary identification method as for vouching as the norm rather than the exception. Is it fair? Is it right? Are you creating a level playing field? This democracy that we've toiled for, is that how we want to build and sustain it? The NIA again has confirmed our position that the snail pace of Ghana card registration exercise is largely incomplete, and that they are now waiting for the COVID-19 situation in the country to subside so they can embark on a mop-up and card distribution exercise in some regions. The big question, therefore, is why will Jim Mensah-led EC rely on an identification card, Ghana card, whose issuance is largely incomplete and fraught with several anomalies and demographic disparities? Why? Why is the Jim Mensah-led EC excluding from the list of registration requirements under the proposed CI their own widely available and acceptable voters ID card, and rather including the Ghana card, which is currently possessed by just about 6.5 million Ghanaians who are 18 years and above? A card which is currently not accepted by any public, private, or commercial institution. You go to the banks today, they don't accept the cards. How many of you have sent Ghana cards to bank and they've accepted before? They don't accept it. That's a fact. So why will they insist, after telling the whole public that they are going to use the old card, and then surreptitiously they go and remove the card, and then now insist on a Ghana card, which majority of the citizens do not have? Now let me come to the EC. As for the EC's lame response, the least said about it, the better. None of the germane issues raised at our last press conference has been addressed by the EC. The commonsensical question that is begging for an answer is why the Jane Mensah-led EC excluded the existing voters' ID card from the list of registration requirements provided under the proposed CI. Why have they excluded an identification card that has been upheld by the Supreme Court as the best prima facie evidence of voter eligibility? And we showed you. This is a decided case with Supreme Court. That is law. When the Supreme Court makes a proclamation, it is akin to law. So is the EC above the law? Can they do whatever they want? And then they will quote, we are independent institution. Independent institution must be within the confines of the law and reason and common sense. And if you are given power, that power, the Constitution says it must be, the lawyers help the article what? It must not be used in an arbitrary manner. 298. Somebody should find it for me so that I'll read. You must not use that power capriciously and all those things. Whimsically, arbitrarily, and in a biased manner. Is this not whimsical, arbitrary, and biased way of doing things? So, why have they excluded a voter ID card, which is the most credible and available form of identification in this country, from the list of registration requirements, save the germane issue and all other claims of the EC are all red herrings. All the things they said really is neither here nor there. In fact, I heard one of them saying that, the EC can decide to change its mind at any time. Really? Really? I mean, I was dumbfounded when I heard a representative of the EC on air saying they decided to change their mind. When you were stating your position, you engaged stakeholders. And the stakeholders, some of them probably were convinced. People have been asking, why is it that the Christian Council, others, or they are not talking? Maybe they were convinced. Maybe. We give them the benefit of the doubt. That, okay, if you have your old card and you just go as they said it here, we have videos to show, several videos, the director of IT, the director of election services, they all said it. If you have your card, you go, they'll just take your picture. Okay, it's okay, let's manage. Now, that is a major issue that borders on accessibility and credibility of the entire electoral process. You take that one out, and you say you change your mind. You didn't consult anybody. And when they saw that they had been found out, they then sent somebody to go and lie that it was discussed at an IPAC. They didn't even think through that they had forgotten that the CI had been laid earlier before that so-called IPAC meeting. How would you describe this one? As for our friends in the MPP, when you listen to their statement, you don't know whether they thought it was a rally or they just did not address any issues. They went on an attack of the former president, Mahama, who they know is a threat to them. You recall before the NDC primaries, MPP people, gurus, were advising him not to contest. Has and Kotoko are going to play match. And the team of the other side, I don't want to mention this team or that team so that you treat me alive, is saying that don't use this goalkeeper. What be that? Because they know he's a threat to their chances. So they spend all their time, insults, attacks, and everything. It will amount to anything. And then the most laughable aspect of it is they don't need the NIA and they don't need the EC to win an election. Really? Really? When in a common by-election, Ayawaso West by-election, you attempted to commit murder. When somebody points a gun, AK-47, and shoots, the laugh is that the gun didn't enter the head or any of the organs. They were going to kill, attempt to kill for a by-election. And you tell us that you don't need to do what to win. The record of their party and their government does not resonate with that claim they are making that they don't need the EC and the NIA. So, and when somebody is taken to court for committing a crime, there are two ways. Sometimes he's caught red-handed, that one is simple. Sometimes he's not caught red-handed, but the evidence that one, here is EC, that says, so we'll use voters ID card. Then EC says that on several forums. Then NIA, this card, even the NIA said the card is not needed for voters registration. I'm sure we have that video. They said it on several occasions. And then the NIA goes to do the registration. As they do the registration, by some strange reason, They sent more equipment, and indeed, he had confirmed it that the equipment finally arrived when they had gone, they were now going to other regions. But that is exactly what we were saying. That if we were not ready, what was the rush? Because you have to be seen to be fair to everybody. And then you go to those other regions, the statistics show that in those regions, registered less the number of people who voted in 2016 than the people you have registered now. But then when it came to Ashanti region, which is the stronghold of the APP, you registered more people. That is evidence. And then for some strange reason too, when it comes to our strongholds, Upper East, Upper West, Bono, Northeast, Savannah, all those places, the number of people who have their cards is grossly, Central Western. How can you register people and in some cases only 5% of the people have the card, 6%? And you say you're going to do mop-up. Mop-up when? If it took you 3 years to distribute 7 million cards, when will you finish the so-called mop-up? And will the EC wait for them? In any case, as we speak now, as I'm talking to you now, the EC hasn't got a timetable. Or any of you go to one of those their meetings. Do you know their timetable? The EC does not have a timetable. This is unprecedented in the electoral history of this country. And they must be called out. You don't have a timetable. We're going into a very crucial elections. Now, the only thing we have is a document when they went to ECOWAS. There was a video conference, ECOWAS, which we had access to. And if you look at those documents, hold on, please. Okay. But if you look at that timetable they gave to ECOWAS, what it meant was that they said they were going to start the registration middle of June and end in July sometime. If you look at the dates, and I will get the dates, you will see that there's a point where they said in September, candidates will file their nominations. By that September, the final register would not have been ready. And you know that for candidates to file their nominations, you need a certified copy of the register. Because assuming that there was somebody in the register who proposes you or seconds you or whatever, and there's a challenge to that person, subsequently, that person's name will not be in the final register. And this has been a reason for disqualifying people. So we are heading towards danger. So as for MPP, that they don't need in any case, we are in a global world. We have seen things that have happened in neighboring countries. Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, all those places that there was trouble was based on electoral disputes. And the foundation for those disputes were disputed electoral registers. If we talk about rigging, it's not just on voting day. But if the electoral system is skewed and people in your strongholds are not allowed to register, prima facie, you have been rigged. So, and then again, COVID-19. So how many people did we have before they suspended in the Eastern region? You recall in the Eastern region, when they were doing the registration, and then the numbers were going up. We had about 268, you know? And 3 deaths. Today, I hear we have crossed the 6,000 mark. We are leading in Africa. West Africa.
We are second to Nigeria.
We are second to Nigeria. You know, so it's a silver cup. Shame, God forbid. But Nigerian population is 4 times. So if you look at it, you do the statistical analysis, it's frightening. And in the face of this, you stopped registration when we were 200 and something, okay, for the NIA card. Now you want to register 17, 18 million people in 40 days. My brethren, brothers and sisters, let's be honest though. You put NDC aside, put MPP aside. Is this realistic? Is this sound? That you want to register 18 million people in 40 days? Are we not in this Ghana? And when you say, they say, oh, they will do social distancing, 25 people. Sometimes I don't even understand what is happening in this country again. So let's even assume that you succeed in 25 people. That's within your perimeter. Will you determine how many people will come from their homes? Because you say you are clustering 5, 6, or 8 polling stations. So the people who will be outside the perimeter, and you say your people will wear PPE, what about the citizens? Will you give everybody PPE? And when people are going to register, will they not help them with their thumbprints and etc.? Will that not bring them into close proximity with people? How would you determine that the person has it or doesn't have it? These are practical, commonsensical issues that we are putting out there, and we want you, the media, to ask. But when you say, they say, oh, and they said they will do it. But the fact that they said they will do it is not enough. We must ask them questions. We must ask them questions, relevant questions. So we foresee a situation where if they attempt to do it, first of all, it's going to be very chaotic. There will be confusion all across the country. And secondly, God forbid, if they persist, the COVID-19 cases are going to blow out of proportion. Or we don't want any of these things to happen. You see, when we talk, they say, oh, we are calling for, somebody was warning them that, look, these are the things that happen in other countries and that led to chaos and instability. They say you should report to police. But it is because we don't want those things to happen. That is why we are warning. We don't want that. This democracy, the NDC, we played a critical part. We birthed this constitution. It's part of our legacy. So we don't want to go back to the days of curfew and people run. God forbid, it will not happen. But it will not happen when we don't talk and we just sit down. This matter goes beyond NDC and PP. This is the sustenance of our democracy. So, ladies and gentlemen, as far as we are concerned, the wishy-washy responses of the EC, NIA, and the MPP to the issues we have raised further exposes the criminal conspiracy between these entities to disenfranchise millions of eligible voters and subvert the will of the people. But the people of this country are discerning and vigilant and will not allow this attempt to undermine the integrity of this year's general election and, for that matter, our democracy. We shall employ every legitimate means to resist the attempt to suppress votes and rig the 2020 general elections. It is not for nothing that in our national anthem we have a line that says, and help us to resist oppressors with all our will and might forevermore. And help us to resist oppressors with all our will and might forevermore. It's not every oppressor that is carrying a gun. Some oppressors, they speak mellifluous English and they carry constitution, but they are worse than those who are carrying guns. Thank you very much.